Colleagues, we're about a minute early, but I think we'll get going. I know we've got a lot of ground to cover, and anytime we have a minister in our presence, it's a good day. Colleagues, as also, this was and will be a televised meeting, just so you're all aware. I'd like to thank Minister Bryson and his officials of being here. Minister Bryson, we haven't seen you in a while. You never phone, you never write. I thought for a moment you just didn't like us, but we're glad to have you here.
Well, you know how fond I am of this committee and its members.
I do know how fond you are, sir. So with that, you certainly know the drill. I'll ask you perhaps to introduce the officials who are with you and then commence with your opening statement.
Great stuff. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm delighted to be here with you at the committee again, and with me today are Brian Pagan, the Assistant Secretary of the Expenditure Management Sector, Karen Cahill, the Chief Financial Officer. I also would like to introduce Glenn Purvis, who has joined Treasury Board from Finance, and Glenn will be actually replacing Brian. Brian has announced that he will be retiring after 33 years, serving the people of Canada exceptionally well in 6 departments. 12 of those years were actually in Treasury Board. He has done exceptional work on behalf of Canadians. I know he's worked closely with committee members, and he has played a leadership role in reforming the budget and estimates process in a way that I believe it will live as a legacy to his commitment to making a positive difference in the lives of Canadians. So thank you, Brian, for all your great work. And for, you see, we on this side we appreciate the public service and the work we do. No, but I do want to, Mr. Chair and committee members, we have exceptional public servants. Serving the people of Canada on an ongoing basis, and Brian Pagan is one of the finest with whom I've worked in two different ministries, and I want to thank you, Brian, for your work, and come back anytime, and welcome Glenn. Now, le budget supplémentaire des dépenses présente.
The supplementary estimates present information to Parliament on spending that was either not developed in time for inclusion in the main estimates or has been refined to account for further development of particular programs and services. As you will recall, the first supplementary estimates were typically presented in the spring.
Changes to the sequencing of the main estimates and the budget for the duration of the Parliament. The spring supplementary estimates were not necessary for 2018 and 2019. By having the main estimates actually follow the budget, parliamentarians now can understand more clearly how they relate to the big picture set out in the budget forecast. Moreover, parliamentarians now have online access to more detailed and more accurate information. Thus, they're better able to hold government to account on how it spends tax dollars. We did this because of our belief in Canadians' right to know where public funds are being spent and invested. Cela étant dit,
that being said, supplementary estimates are necessary to present the government's incremental spending requirements to Parliament.
Parliament's approval of funding to invest in a number of important infrastructure projects, to settle claims, and to deliver socio-economic programs for Indigenous people. I'd like to highlight a few of the major items. $827.3 million to provide 3 ice breakers for the Canadian Coast Guard, $666 million for compensation for First Nations for specific claim settlements, $438.5 million for infrastructure projects in Indigenous communities, $423.1 million for on-reserve water and wastewater infrastructure operations, and also for capacity building. As of last week, Mr. Speaker, in terms of results, 74 long-term drinking water advisories have been eliminated. We are on track to lift all of these. by 2021 on Indigenous communities across Canada. $323.3 million to address a wide range of health, social, and educational needs, according to Jordan's principle. $291.8 million for the new Champlain Bridge Corridor project. $283.6 million for the Gordie Howe International Bridge, the Detroit-Windsor crossing. $282.2 million for defense investments, acquiring military equipment and upgrading key facilities. $239 million to settle the Treaty 8 agricultural benefit specific claim with the Little Red River Cree Nation, and $210 million to allow Infrastructure Canada to deliver on the remaining funding agreements which had been undertaken with the former P3 Canada Fund. J'aimerais aussi attirer votre attention.
I'd also like to draw your attention to the portion of the supplementary estimates for my department. Although a very small part of these funds is for Treasury Board Secretariat itself. Nearly all the funding requested is for 2 central votes.
Compensation adjustments, we are seeking Parliament's authority for $541.4 million related to agreements concluded between August 2017 and August 2018. These funds are mainly for wage adjustments related to the Border Services, Law and Executive Groups. After Parliament approves the Appropriation Act, funds will be distributed to the home departments of these agencies. Under the vote for government-wide initiatives, we're also seeking $128 million for the LGBTQ2 Purge Class Action Settlement and $119 million for the Indigenous Early Learning and Child Care Framework. National Defence and Employment and Social Development, respectively, are responsible for leading these initiatives. They're working with partner departments and non-government organizations to determine the allocation of funding to departments and projects. Distribution of funding to departments will begin after Parliament has approved the appropriation and these parameters are finalized. Excuse me, Mr. Chair. To take a moment to speak on estimates reform. Mr. Chair, as you know, our government committed to improving parliamentary oversight of government spending around 4 pillars, and we have taken action in each area. I'm very proud of the work we've done. First, we've changed the sequencing so that the main estimates are tabled after the budget. Secondly, we reconciled the accrual-based budget forecast with the cash-based estimates. Third, we are piloting a vote structure that shows parliamentarians the purpose of funding provided for grants and contributions. And fourth, our policy on results lets Canadians know how their tax dollars are spent, what results are achieved, and how they're being achieved. I appreciate the committee's engagement in the study of the estimates, and I'm always happy to consider what we can do to better support this. For example, when I came to this committee in May to talk about the main estimates, I indicated that in respect of the allocations to departments and remaining balances for the line-by-line budget measures in the Budget Implementation Act, Treasury Board Vote 40, we would update the Excel table on a monthly basis and the text reporting and also the text reporting in the next available estimates. Mr. McCauley at that time requested that we update the text reporting on a monthly basis. And as we do in the with the Excel table, and I'm happy to say that we've started doing this in August as a result of Mr. McCauley's good suggestion. So we're actually listening to the committee, and we're actually doing this. Well, the other Mr. McCauley, he's a great Mr. McCauley. Minister McCauley is a great fellow too. With the changes we made so far, we are again raising the bar on openness and transparency. That was recently recognized in the Open Data Barometer survey, where we ranked #1 globally in terms of how governments publish and use open data for accountability, innovation and social impact. It's also reflected in the Government of Canada becoming the lead government co-chair of the Open Government Partnership for 2018 and 2019. Mr. Chair, I'm I've had about 21 and a half years as a member of Parliament. Of those, 16 were in opposition. And as a member of committees, I respect greatly the work of parliamentarians of all parties and the work of committees. And it's I also believe it's extremely important that members of Parliament from all parties have the opportunity to follow the money, to be able to track how tax dollars are spent. It's one of the most important roles of members of Parliament on behalf of Canadians, and so I look forward to engaging with you and your committee members again today. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your remarks, Mr. Bryson. We'll start with our 7-minute round of interventions, beginning with Madame Ratanzi.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Minister, for being here. Mr. Pagan, I think Mr. Macaulay will miss batting with you on issues, but we appreciate the services that you have provided, and we wish you the best. Minister, when you came before, I'm looking at the estimates, the supplementary estimates, and you're seeking parliamentary approval of $7.5 billion in voted spending. And one of the things that interests me is the monies that is being given to the Department of Indian Affairs and Northern Development for their Indigenous services of $438.5 million and another for $423.1 million. I have just returned from Iqaluit, and where we were talking about respecting and reflecting the Indigenous presence in Parliament. And we have now had 11 parliamentarians of Indigenous origin here. And I know that the cancellation of the Kelowna Accord had pushed back a lot of the investments and infrastructure investments in the Indigenous communities. So could you explain to me how this additional money will help in the infrastructure projects? Because, safe drinking water is a critical issue there, and housing is an issue there. So would you be able to elaborate?
First of all, thank you for your question. We all have a vested interest in the success of Indigenous peoples, and this is the fastest growing and youngest population in Canada. If we get this right, this is a huge opportunity for Canada. Having a young population and fast-growing population can be a good thing. If we get this wrong, it is catastrophic for all of us in terms of the future, both economically and socially. So every one of us, Indigenous and non-Indigenous, have a vested interest in the success and the future success of Indigenous peoples and Indigenous children. So that's why the investments we're making, for instance, the $423 million to lift long-term water advisories on public systems on reserves. Think of it, just having safe water. We're on track to lift all of these by 2021. Critical infrastructure, for instance, in housing, $287.4 million to invest in capacity and also to address some very critical housing infrastructure needs. Investments, $323 million to help First Nations children have access to the same publicly funded programs as other children, just as something as basic as that in terms of equality of opportunity, in terms of basic education. These are the kinds of investments that will really move the needle in terms of the future of Indigenous peoples. Minister Philpott has been doing a great job in terms of services. Also, I think if you look at the changes we've made in terms of machinery of government around Indigenous people, it makes a great deal of sense in terms of the ability to actually not just invest the money, but to actually see the results. And the work that Carolyn Bennett is doing is extremely important in partnership with Minister Philpott, and they're both doing tremendous work on behalf of all Canadians.
Thank you. And having been there, and there were MPPs from across Canada, we were absolutely wonderstruck at the way the people were able to survive, at their resilience living there. I didn't even know that you could that the Frobisher Bay froze, and therefore you could take your skidoo over there. So I think I am also concerned about climate, and the questions we get are at our town hall is Indigenous affairs and climate change. Have we made any, or has the Minister of Climate Environment come before and asked for additional funding in this voted, in that 7.5 billion?
You're quite right in identifying that in many Indigenous peoples are extremely concerned about climate change, and many of the communities of Indigenous people are in fact coastal communities that will bear the brunt of climate change in the coming years. We are making significant investments, not just in terms of measures to reduce our carbon footprint as a government and as a country, addressing long-term climate change, but also in terms of a mitigation strategy and also a resilience strategy to help communities become better prepared, and including changes that will protect critical infrastructure. These and working with other levels of government. I know in Nova Scotia, for instance, we've provided funding to the provincial government to make investments, for instance, in some of the dike systems around the province, including in my riding, where my riding is on the Bay of Fundy in Nova Scotia, the highest tides in the world. And so while we are investing to reduce the long-term our emissions, and we also recognize the need to invest in climate change resilience and fortifying and strengthening coastal communities is part of that, and that has a significant impact on Indigenous communities in a lot of cases as well.
30 seconds, so I can't ask you another question.
Thank you very much.
You will have ample opportunities following this, though. Mr. McCauley, you're up for 7 minutes, please.
Minister, welcome back. Mr. Pagan, best of luck. And Mr. Purvis, good luck looking as young as Mr. Pagan in after 12 years of Treasury Board. You know, as always, I'm shocked at the size of your entourage, Minister. We bug you about how do we find the money, the $7 billion slush fund from Vote 40, I think it's spent on your entourage. Now, oh, calm down, Ms. Mendez. Now, Minister, getting to the estimates itself, there's $53.5 million in allotment from TB Vote 5 for the 3 icebreakers on top of the, I think, 855 in Fisheries itself. Could you speak to your role in the national shipbuilding strategy?
Well, its Treasury Board actually plays a role on cabinet committees on an ongoing basis in terms of a challenge function. That's one of the reasons why the President Treasury Board is a member of all cabinet committees, as is the Minister of Finance.
So you're part of the cabinet committee that discusses defence procurement then on major projects? Well,
Treasury Board is involved in all major expenditures. Ultimately, defence procurement, you actually have PSPC, Public Service and Procurement Canada, leads the charge with defence, national defence. The man and industry, or I'm sorry, ISED is also involved.
Treasury Board President sits on the committee, right?
Well, the Treasury Board President does sit on the Treasury Board Cabinet Committee. He, in fact, chairs it. But just on this, it's important because the Public Service and Procurement Canada, their mandate is to get the best value for tax dollars in an open and transparent process. Defence is to get the best possible equipment for our brave men and women in uniform. ISED is to get the best possible jobs and ITBs for Canadians in terms of economic benefit. And Treasury Board plays a role in terms of ensuring best value for money, but also in terms of a challenge function for all government expenditures.
Okay. Did the Cabinet Committee on Defence Procurement, then, that you're part of or chair, meet on November 19th, 2015 to discuss Project Resolve?
I don't recall exact dates of cabinet committees, but we can certainly...
It would have been 2 weeks after you were named as Treasury Board.
Yes, we formed government in early November, you'll recall, and I think cabinet was sworn in on November 4th, and that's the point at which I became president of the Treasury.
Give or take a day, were you on that? Were you at that meeting?
I sat on. In fact, it's a matter of public record that I was.
Did you recommend
I've been
delaying
vice
Project
chair.
Resolve?
I've been vice chair of that. I'm not going to speak on matters of cabinet confidence. And you know, you'll understand that there are cabinet confidences that apply to cabinet meetings, and I'm not going to violate those.
Oh, okay. What was the cabinet committee on why was the cabinet committee on defense procurement ultimately disbanded?
You'd have to ask that question to the Prime Minister, who makes those decisions in terms of cabinet committees. In the last changes made to cabinet committees, Treasury Board actually took on additional responsibilities, including, for instance, in the oversight of the development of the new pay system, the next generation pay system, and also some additional responsibilities in terms of defense procurement.
Now, the discussions to delay Project Resolve, of course, you know, we're all aware of that. Did that stem from any input, advice, or information you received from private sector officials?
I'm sorry, I couldn't. What was that?
The delay or the discussion, sorry, to delay Project Resolve. Did that stem from conversations outside of cabinet with private sector officials?
Actually, I've already addressed this in the House of Commons,
But I'm asking
and I will
about.
say very clearly that as a new government, with a $670 million untendered contract, that we had a responsibility that I exercised as president of the Treasury Board to do due diligence and to ensure value for money.
Did you do that based on any information received from private sector officials?
I did that in my capacity and my responsibility as president of the Treasury Board.
Was any of it due to input or information received from private sector officials?
I was briefed by my department on this issue, and I've also said in the House of Commons, you can check the Hansard, that the only interaction I had during that period of time with, for instance, Irving Shipyards, was being copied on a letter that was sent to 2 other ministers. I was copied on a letter that was sent to 2 other ministers.
Did you interfere with any other contracts that have been granted under the previous government? The reason I ask that, we've got about a 2,000-page ATIP. I'd be happy to table it. It's your briefing papers, and I'm reading from the overview of the legislative mandate of the TBS president, and it doesn't really discuss anything about specific interference or opening up previous contracts, et cetera, et cetera. So you did that as your role to interfere with the Project Resolve. Did you do that to any other contracts that had been signed by the previous government?
Mr. McCauley, Treasury Board's responsibility on expenditure management extends
or was Project Resolve the only one that you got involved in?
Mr. McCauley, Treasury Board's responsibility to provide due diligence and to work to ensure good value for tax dollars extends to every government department and agency, and it is exerted at all cabinet committees in which I participate.
I just had 2 last questions for you. Did you get involved in any other reviews of previous contracts in previous government like you did with Project Resolve?
Actually, one of the areas that we've become very involved is in the area of digital, for instance. And one of the situations that
contracts that you got involved with, the same level as you did with Project Resolve, upon taking over the Treasury Board 2 weeks into your mandate?
Mr. McCauley, this was a
point of order.
Mr. McCauley, I'm sorry.
My understanding is we were here to review the estimates. I mean, there's billions of dollars being spent here. This is supposed to be the open and transparent mechanism where parliamentarians can review the expenditures of the government through Treasury Board. And it just seems to me that Mr. McCauley's line of questioning isn't relevant to the topic of today's meeting, and I'm sure his constituents, as well as many taxpayers in Canada, want to know why these funds are being expended. And I just wonder why he's missing his opportunity not to ask the questions. Those types of questions.
Thank you for your point of order. In response to that, Mr. Peterson, I can tell you that I am certainly in my capacity as chair, I have the discretion to determine what is and what is not relevant. I have been listening fairly intently to the testimony. I can tell you that there is some relevance that I can see, certainly in the sense that even in the minister's opening comments, he mentioned about the massive expenditure at Fisheries and Oceans for 3 icebreakers. There's also other references to procurement within the government and within the subs A. And Mr. McCauley's line of questioning, while it's perhaps walking a bit of a narrow line, is still dealing with those issues. So I do see there are relevant issues here. And Mr. McCauley, you have about 20 seconds left.
23 seconds. Do you want to answer that?
Mr. McCauley, I've said, as I said in the House, that I do my job as Treasury Board President, and I do it
any other projects signed by the previous government? I'm not asking what you spoke about in the House, Minister.
Yeah, gentlemen,
I'm not talking to you, Mr.
what I'll try and do is, in my role as an impartial referee, is try and ensure that both the questioner and the minister have adequate time to give proper questions and adequate responses. I take my role not fairly, I take my role extremely seriously in that. And so in this case, I will be certainly adjudicating. If I think the minister is rambling on and not speaking to a direct question, I will interject myself, but at this point in time, I think that he's been doing an adequate job providing the information that he's been asked. We'll now move on to Mr. McGregor. Welcome to our committee, sir. You have 7 minutes.
Appreciate it, Chair. Thank you very much. Minister, thank you for appearing today. I want to go on to the subject of Vote 40, and I want to recognize the work of Mr. Blakey in highlighting this issue during the main estimates. Now, we have before us, Parliament did authorize $7 billion, but we can see it's about $2.7 billion that have been spent, leaving $4.3 billion unspent. So one of the chief reasons that we heard from your government for this Vote 40 was that you wanted to have to authorize the spending so it could be used as soon as possible once the plans were ready and a Treasury Board submission was complete. We see the supplementary estimates are you're not even close to allocating all the money. So could not these items that have been allocated since the main estimates, couldn't they have come under the supplementary estimates so that, through the Treasury Board submission process, so that we parliamentarians could have had better oversight and better informed authorization of where the money is actually going?
Sure. Thank you very much for your question, Mr. McGregor. We've actually, so far, $2.9 billion have been allocated. That's 45% of the amount of the total Vote 40. Brian has informed me, which is on track. If you look at where we are in the fiscal year, that is, we are on track in terms of that. Further, the detail on this, if you can go to the website sources and uses of the budget implementation vote by department and see this information. The granularity of this is very significant. For instance, combating aggressive international tax avoidance, budget funding was $4,885,000, allocated so far $3,966,360. You can take a look at protecting air travelers. You can see that the $240,612,000 has been fully allocated. Strengthening Canada's food safety, $15,700,000 allocated, or rather in the budget funding. So far, $12,700,000. So the level of granularity and transparency on this is
what the crux of my question was that in order to give better parliamentary oversight, given that there's still so much money that's left unspent, could not these have come through supplementary estimates to give us as a parliamentary body the chance to have that better oversight rather than approving a $7 billion fund for your department to spend as necessary? It seems to me they could have been introduced right here and now for us to actually have a look at the needs of each department and then to approve them on each line item.
A couple things on this. One is that the fact that we're updating on a monthly basis this information, and so it's being updated in real time, accessible to parliamentarians. With this level of granularity, and I'll just give you the example in terms of CRA. Funding will be used to increase capacity to enhance GST and HST compliance activities and to address tax obligations of non-residents on rental income in Canada. Up to 170 full-time equivalents are planned to be renewed or hired over the next 5 years. These initiatives are expected to generate roughly $70 million in federal revenue each year. That's the level of granularity for one, I'm using that as an example, and I can provide you with that. I may ask Brian also to speak to this as somebody who has been extremely involved and played a leadership role in this. But in terms of actual parliamentarians having the opportunity to follow government spending and the results of that government spending, this is unprecedented. And Brian, would you like to?
Well, thank you, Minister, and thank you, Mr. McGregor. As the Minister notes, the intention of Vote 40 was to provide more and better information to parliamentarians so that they understood how the budget was being implemented. We had a budget delivered by the Department of Finance at the end of February, and the main estimates, delivered April 16th, were the first opportunity to present budget requirements to Parliament. And we did that in the form of Vote 40 with the detailed annex. And as a result of exchanges at this committee, we undertook to update that information monthly. So there have been 7 updates, and I would suggest to the committee that presenting that information on a monthly basis is an advance over the Minister and I appearing here in the 1st of November. This is the first time we've been back to talk about estimates requirements, but in the meantime, there have been updates on June 5th, July 9th, August 10th, September 11th, October 12th, and October 31st. And as the Minister said, it's a level of detail that is designed very much to inform parliamentarians and Canadians on the progress that departments are making.
Thank you for that. Minister, can you guarantee that all of the $7 billion that were approved are going to be allocated before this fiscal cycle ends and before we see the next main estimates? Yes or no question. Can you guarantee that all of these $7 billion will be spent before the next main estimates?
Thank you, Mr. McGregor.
If the Minister could answer, would that be okay?
Brian's input on
Okay.
this in terms of that.
Estimates provide up to amount authority. So with this vote, we have the ability to allocate up to $7 billion if departments come forward with their submissions. At this time, we are approaching halfway in terms of allocations of that vote, and we will continue to update parliamentarians monthly, Canadians monthly, on our progress. Anything that is not allocated means that the department did not come forward with a TB submission, and it could be because they are involved in contract negotiations, developing the parameters of the program with their partners. If it is not accessed through the estimates this year, and this was a commitment that we made back in the spring, it reverts to the fiscal framework, and the Department of Finance will reprofile that money into a future year, and it will be drawn down in subsequent estimates exercises. Anything that is not accessed this year and that we know won't be accessed, we will highlight that to Parliament in our final subs of the year. Those amounts will be frozen. They won't be available for allocation. They'll be drawn down in future years, and we will tag those in future estimates documents as a Budget 18 commitment.
Thank you very much. Madame Mendez, 7 minutes, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Minister, and all of you for coming today. I have 2 questions, Minister, and I'll ask both at the same time, so you have ample time to answer them. So one of them is more general, and it goes back to when you were last here, and we talked about the estimates reform. So some people were waiting to see if you would really publish the monthly updates, which we've heard are being published, and you also have the sources where this budget implementation vote has been dedicated to. So I wanted to give you an opportunity to expand on that. My second question is a much more specific one to my constituency, and it's about the new Champlain Bridge and the $291.8 million that were provided for in the budget for the Office of Infrastructure of Canada. And I'd like to know how those monies are supposed or meant to be spent in the new Champlain Bridge, and how is that outside of the planned budget, or is it within the planned budget? So I would appreciate, because it does touch very specifically on my constituency. Sure. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Alexandra. We first of all on the estimates reform and the amount of detail we are now providing to parliamentarians in real time. We are, and again, any parliamentarian can verify the sources and uses of the budget implementation vote by department on an ongoing basis. We're providing a level of detail and explanation that is really important in terms of parliamentarians doing their jobs. In terms of the sequencing, it was asinine in many ways in the past to have the main estimates before the budget. This sequencing, the change we have made, actually aligns budget and estimates in a way that is much more meaningful. In the past, what would happen is once the budget came in, the relevance or pertinence of the main estimates was largely eliminated, and so all the work the parliamentarians did on the main estimates was really not as meaningful as it ought to have been. It will take time over time for both within Parliament but also within departments. The work between Finance and Treasury Board and with departments is actually seeing results now. But over time, I think we're going to see a much more integrated approach to both the budgeting process and the estimates process. So you'll see a lot more work around.
Yeah, Mr. Interrupt. So if it is my understanding, and I think many of us understand this, vote 40 was meant to be a transition vote until we get to the new process fully, if I understand correctly.
It certainly it was important in terms of this year, the first year that we do this. But again, there has been no diminution of reportage or of detail or accountability to Parliament. To the contrary, in fact, it has seen an increased level of detail provided to parliamentarians and to Canadians. In terms of the Champlain Bridge, in some of the initiatives, $291.8 million for the Champlain Bridge corridor project. This is important, as you've referenced to your writing, but it's important to Canada. 40 to 50 million vehicles and 11 million public transit commuters every year. It is one of the busiest bridges in Canada. It is also facilitates $20 billion annually in international trade. This is an important investment. We are also part of that is working through the P3 Canada Fund, a Crown Corporation mandated to promote the adoption of public-private partnership model across Canada at the time. But this investment is going to be very important to the economy of Montreal, the economy of Quebec, but also to the Canadian economy and to the quality of life of Montrealers and Canadians.
But this specific fund, was it just part of the overall budget, and this was just one portion of it that was allocated in this specific budget lining, or is it added budget to the overall project?
It's my understanding. Yeah, Brian, would you want to add something on that?
Thank you, Madam Mendes. It's a very tippy chair.
Yeah, one of them fell.
There are two elements to the amounts being brought forward for the Champlain Bridge in these supplementary estimates A. The first is a settlement agreement that was announced by the Government of Canada back in April as a result of negotiations with the builder of the bridge, Signature on the St. Lawrence, to cover the transport of particularly large pieces of steel and bridge structure. And so there was an agreement on a way forward for that. And then there was an agreement to accelerate some of the work, and as a result of that, there were some additional costs incurred. And so that forms a portion of the monies that are sought through these supplementary estimates A. The other portion of the amounts in these subs is the reprofiling. I mentioned that word earlier. Every project, every large project such as this will have a contingency reserve. It's monies that are available should there be changes in foreign exchange, in inflation, in the value of our dollar, et cetera. And to this point, those funds have not been utilized for the project, but they're available, and they were reprofiled from previous years when they were in the estimates into this fiscal year. And so it exists to enable the closeout of the project.
Thank you. Colleagues, I should have mentioned at the outset of the meeting, Minister Bryson is with us for the first hour. We have approximately 20 minutes left, which should get us to the end of our first round of questioning. So with that, I will ask M. Deltel. 5 minutes, s'il vous plaît.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président. Votre français.
Thank you, Chair. Your French is getting better by the day. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, Minister, welcome to the committee. You said on October 16th that you're doing your job. That is a statement that is good to hear because that's what we're here to do is our job. Now, I would like to know, on November 19th, 2015, you had the authority to stop Project Resolve for analysis so you could do your job. Is that the only time that you did your job to stop a project and analyze it like you did with Project Resolve?
Mr. Deltel, I will not violate cabinet confidences, but I have said that on an ongoing basis, my responsibility as Treasury Board President involves expenditure management, to play a challenge function, to ensure the integrity of government procurement practices.
Oui, mais Monsieur le
On
Président du
cabinet
Conseil du
committees, it's
Trésor,
not
je ne vous demande pas de...
unique to one cabinet committee or another. That is my job. It's actually the job of the Secretariat at the public service level, and we work with other departments and
Mais vous avez
agencies to do
commenté
that.
publiquement.
But you publicly commented on that project, and my specific question is, did you halt other projects in order to do your job and analyze it, yes or no? If it's yes, I'm not going to ask you which projects, I just want a yes or no answer. Have you done for other projects what you did with Project Resolve?
That our government inherited a contract with worth $670 million that was a sole source contract.
And you did your job on that, but my question is crystal clear. Did you do your job to other projects?
Mr. Deltel, I do my job on an ongoing basis at cabinet committees and as president of the Treasury Board, but also as a member of cabinet. It's something that we all take very seriously on an ongoing basis to ensure good value for tax dollars, and that our procurement practices are maintained at the very highest standards.
Oh, I can tell you, Mr. Speaker, that it was a real good value, the Astérix and the Resolve project. Ça a été fait dans les délais et dans les budgets.
It was done on time and on budget, and it's a great source of pride and a great source of honor for the Davy workers for having done it. It's actually a great feat, and we're very proud as a government for having gotten it done. And now it's too bad that the Treasury Board President is not answering such a simple question. Did he halt other projects like he did for Project Resolve to analyze them? Here's your opportunity for the third and last time. Yes or no, did you do your job on other projects like you did for Project Resolve? Yes or no?
I'm not going to violate cabinet confidences, Mr.
You did
Chair.
that for the Resolve project.
What I am being very clear on is that on an ongoing basis, day in, day out, Treasury Board has a responsibility to oversee expenditure management for the Government of Canada. We do that as Treasury Board Secretariat at the Public Service level.
C'est dommage, Monsieur le Président, que le Président du Conseil du Trésor...
It's a shame, Mr. Chair, that the Treasury Board President spoke out publicly on Project Resolve, which was a colossal success for Canadian taxpayers and Davies, but he won't say that if he halted projects for halted other such projects. That's a shame. Now, concerning this project, he said there was only one contact with a private sector company, and that was tabled. So probably it was the letter that Radio Canada got in its report of November 20th. But as a member of Parliament, did he have contact context in August 2015 when the preceding government announced Project Resolve.
What the honourable member was doing, what the Conservatives are doing, is actually shameful. This is a case that is before the courts, and to be engaged in mudslinging actually compromises the ability for that case to be tried effectively.
The reality and the fact are everything but mudslinging.
This is very important, Mr. Chair, and my colleague, the Minister for Public Safety, has repeated in the House quite clearly, and he's right that this is known as the Subject Judice Convention. It has been cited in the House by governments of many of different stripes over the years.
Dans vos 16 communications que vous avez eues avec
and the chair and the prosecution.
Project Resolve.
The chair is having great difficulty with two people speaking at the same time. And I appreciate the fact that you have the ability and the right to ask questions, as the minister has the ability and the right to answer questions. My job is to try and ascertain whether or not courtesy and all of those elements of committee work that goes into this committee is respected, and I take my responsibility very seriously. So I would suggest that in future, if there are questions that I think are being a little too long-winded, I will interject myself and ask the minister to wrap it up or allow the next question to be posed. But in this particular case, I found that the minister, in my opinion at least, was attempting to answer a question, and Monsieur Deltel, you were interjecting, and I couldn't hear what your question was, and I could not hear what the minister was attempting to answer. So I would encourage all members to try and work together. You may not like the answer, as the Speaker of the House often says, but at least we should afford the witnesses the opportunity to provide an answer. And unfortunately, Monsieur Deltel, your 5 minutes are up. We will now go to Mr. Peterson for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, the officials, for being here, of course. Mr. Pagan, good luck in the future. We appreciate your contribution to the Treasury Board and to your public service over those years, so thank you for that. Minister Bryson, thank you for being here with us once again. I just want to touch briefly on Vote 40 and this process. I've spoken about it in the House before as well and here in committee. But I think one way of looking at the new processes, and Vote 40 specifically, is that I think, in my opinion, it provides a better quality and a better quantity of information for parliamentarians to review. Do you agree with that assessment?
Well, I think that's one of the wisest things I've heard in a long time. I wish I could have summed it up as well as you did, Mr. Peterson. But it is, I mean, it's in terms of the detail of the information, but also in terms of the accessibility and the usability of it. And I recently became a Minister of Digital Government in addition to President of the Treasury Board. And the ability for us to put information out there in real time today for parliamentarians, but also for Canadians, is unprecedented. And we're doing that. Over time, I see the opportunity for us, in fact, we're moving towards more proactive disclosure, as an example, of writ large in government. Over time, I think that not only strengthens the ability for members of Parliament to do their work, but also the ability for Canadians themselves, to citizens, to hold government accountable. And so I think establishing the clear link between budget and main estimates is an important step, and making the tracking of public expenditures and investments more transparent is really extremely important for Parliament and for accountability writ large.
Thank you. And you also mentioned there were sort of 4 components to the improvement. I mean, generally the sequencing is improved, and we have the main estimates after the budget now, the accrual basis versus the cash basis, which has been improved. You piloted the vote structure, and then the 4th pillar sort of is the policy on results. So I want you to maybe let the committee members know what form does that take, this policy on results, and why is that important, and is that public information that Canadian taxpayers can access as well?
Well, one of the things we're doing is establishing for investments we're making through the new departmental results frameworks is indicators that will help us measure results and help Canadians, track results. So we're not just focused on on the investment, but also on what the investment actually achieves over time. The departmental results frameworks have actually had an impact, I think, within the public service in terms of focusing both ministers and officials on tracking the results of government investments. Brian may want to speak to that in terms of the experience, but it's been over the last 2 years. We've seen a significant change in terms of transparency around the results achieved by investments, not simply on the expenditure, but what actually is achieved as a result of the expenditure. Brian?
Well, thank you, Mr. Pugh. Thank you for the question. As the Minister says, the results policy is aimed at helping parliamentarians understand how programs fit with the broader mandate and objectives of the department and the specific indicators that will be used to measure progress. Above and beyond these departmental results frameworks, we have regular reports to Parliament. So in the spring, we have the departmental plan that lays out, it was tabled the same day as the main estimates this year, and it lays out the specific targets or objectives of the program with the indicators. And then in the fall, in the coming weeks, we will be tabling the departmental results reports, which conclude the reporting exercise and show what was actually achieved with the money spent. We have had these sorts of reports for some years, and we've made some efforts recently to make them more readable and make them lighter. The real advance over the last 3 or 4 years has been TBS Infobase, and we were at this committee in the spring. We showed you not only how Infobase exists for all of spending, but how we were going to be using it to follow the budget implementation vote, a budget tracker. And I commend, again, the tool to the committee and to anybody watching this appearance, because it contains a wealth of information about the structure of programs, the amount of the spend, the personnel delivering the programs.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And now for the final 5-minute intervention, we'll go back to, I think, one of your favorite committee members, Mr. Bryson, because you've stated that on so many occasions. Mr. McCauley for 5 minutes, please.
Even on your Facebook, I'm sure. The PBO has asked repeatedly for the RFP for the combat ship program. Repeatedly, the government's refused to release it to him, even though he believes, and I believe, it's required to release it to him under an act of Parliament. We've asked the Minister for PSPC, will you release it? And got a hum and haw, yeah, we should get around to it. Just last week, it was refused for the 4th time to release it. Can you guarantee to us, because you're the overseer of financial management, that the Parliamentary Budget Officer finally received the RFP for the combat ship program? I'm sorry, it's a simple yes or no. If you want to say no, fine, I'll move on to the other question, but I'd like a quick answer from you, please.
I'd like to speak to my colleague, Minister Qualtrough, on this. I've not been asked that question before. I'd like to actually speak to Minister Qualtrough about the issue. And
do you mind getting back to us, son?
I'll get back with you, and I'll speak to the Minister after I speak with Minister Qualtrough about it.
Next question. Did you discuss Project Resolve in any of the 16 communications you had with the Irving Group since 2016?
Mr. Chair, once again, this is a matter before the courts. This is not, I've been clear in terms of Treasury Board's role on an ongoing basis, but again, I will not compromise that, and I think it's irresponsible for the honourable member to be speaking of a matter that is before the courts now. We have the independence of the judicial process is important, and Parliament has a responsibility. This is known as the Sub Judice Convention. It's been cited in the House.
Minister, I said, and I take my role here seriously, but I also make sure that I only interject when I think is absolutely necessary. I appreciate the response that you were giving. We have heard this. I've certainly heard this, as many others have in the House. I think we know the position. I'm not suggesting it's right, wrong, or indifferent, but I think now that is on the record. And Mr. McCauley, I would ask you to pose another question, please.
Thank you. You mentioned it's before the courts. I accept that. Now, before Admiral Norman, the trial even started, the Prime Minister went public and said it would inevitably come before the courts, suggesting that he was perhaps briefed by the RCMP on the status of investigation. Now, considering your engagement with Irving, did you or the department receive any briefings from the RCMP on the state of Admiral Norman's investigation?
Again, Mr. Chair, my answer to that will be identical to that which I just delivered.
Okay. I'll move on
and that
then.
is that there is a matter before the courts. Parliament has an opportunity, or rather a responsibility, to respect the sub judice convention that actually is there to ensure the integrity and independence of a judicial process, and I wish the honourable member would
I will
behave
interject
responsibly
again and for the
understand.
record note that the question has been posed and answered. And Mr. Macaulay, I'd ask you to move on to your next question.
The Prime Minister showed such responsibility before he publicly condemned Admiral Norman. Now, February of this year, you and this committee agreed to appear before this committee to discuss whistleblower protection. We've repeatedly invited you, and you've supposed to be for summer break. You have not returned to appear for whistleblower. Now, considering your involvement in the ongoing Norman case and the Irving issue, we have a simple question for you. If you're avoiding the briefing because you're implicated in a case against the whistleblower himself.
Actually, on that, your committee has done some work on this. It's done significant work.
We've
on
asked you to appear.
We've
and
actually,
you
but
have
I
not
just on this, Mr. Macaulay, we have actually made improvements to the whistleblower regime that reflect some of the work on this committee.
You agreed to appear before the summer, and you have refused. Is it because of the ongoing whistleblower issue with Admiral Norman?
Mr. Chair, may I finish?
You're not.
Some of the improvements we've made to the administration and operation of the internal disclosure process, for instance, the protection from acts of reprisal against public servants. This includes greater guidance for the internal disclosure process, increased awareness activities and training for public servants, supervisors and managers, enhanced reporting relating to the internal disclosure process and acts of found wrongdoing. That is actually reflects recommendations that were made by this committee. So we have actually listened to the committee and we've made changes to actually strengthen the whistleblower regime.
It's unfortunate you committed to appear in this committee about a whistleblower study, which is very important. We have the worst whistleblower protection of public servants in the OECD, and you've refused to come back. Very quickly.
Sorry. Point of order, Mr. Peterson.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. And I certainly agree with your initial ruling that you were being very deferential to the relevance, but I really don't see how we're rehashing the whistleblower study, which we've already done, and I don't see how that's relevant at all to this.
I think there is relevance there. The question has been asked. Mr. Macaulay has about 24 seconds left.
The Integrity Commissioner receives SUPs, and thus it is relevant. There's negotiations been reported going on with the public service unions about a payoff for inconveniences and other issues with Phoenix. How far along are we? When will we actually get an announcement for that? And ballpark, what will the hit be for the Treasury?
Minister Bryson, a very short answer if it's possible, sir.
You have 3 seconds.
We're working with the public service. First of all, stabilizing the Phoenix pay system is being led by Minister Qualtrough. It's a tough job. We inherited a badly designed and scoped out pay system from the previous government. We are working to fix that, but we're also leading the development at Treasury Board of the next generation pay system. We're using an agile digital procurement approach that is actually going to see working prototypes being tested by public servants in the coming months.
Thank you very much.
We're making a great deal of progress.
I'm afraid we're running out of time, so we're going to have to go to Mr. Jahari. 5 minutes, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I'd like to welcome Minister and the department here. Actually, I'm going to follow up on what Mr. Macaulay was asking, and the Minister didn't get a chance to complete his response. But really, about $18.1 million funding is allocated as part of the back office transformation initiative, which is aimed to replace the number of different human resource management system, financial management system. Can you shed some light on where is this money being spent, as well as finish the statement that you're making regarding the pilot project that's going on the PACE system.
So just on the back office transformation, the initiative since fiscal 2014 and 2015, a total of $130 million has been invested on the initiative. We have, in fiscal 2018-2019, we'll complete the build of the Government of Canada Finance and Material Management Solution, develop a cloud-based infrastructure with a secure connection to a GC network. And just on that, because I know you have a background and understanding in digital transformation, we undertook several months ago a cloud-first strategy as a government. We're seeing significant take-up now by departments and agencies, which is helping us become more agile in terms of our development of digital solutions to serve people better, and that has been helpful in terms of back office transformation as well. So the work is ongoing, and we've made some significant progress.
Okay, thank you. Next question, Minister. Madam Mendes talked about the economic benefit of the new Champlain Bridge. I would be remiss being from Ontario, I don't touch on Gordie Howe's and how Gordie Howe and the investment of $283.6 million is going to add to the economy in Ontario and Canada, especially with the hope of that the USMCA will be ratified in the near future. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. And the Gordie Howe Bridge is important to, of course, the people of Windsor and Ontario, but it's important to the whole country. If you look at the percentage of Canada-US trade on the Detroit-Windsor crossing, it's staggering. And we believe that it's in our national interest to see the construction of the Gordie Howe International Bridge. This is, we are, of course, there are funds in these estimates that will continue that process. This is a very significant project involving a lot of stakeholders and a lot of challenges, but we believe it's incredibly important that we get this done. And I think it's particularly, you mentioned the USMCA and the trade relationship with our biggest trade partner, the jobs that depend on that, the logistics of being able to serve that market are essential to the broader Canadian economy. So we're pleased with the progress, but there's still a lot of work. There's a lot of moving parts with this project. It's a very complex infrastructure project, but we are committed to moving it forward.
How much time? Is there any way that you can give me some idea around the breakdown, the major breakdowns on the $283 million on the Gordie Howe Bridge, and some of the economic benefits? You're quite clear in saying this many cars will be moving through when you were talking about the Champlain Bridge. Is there some indicators that you could share with us? Or you can get back to the committee.
Get back on more, I mean, the reliance on the current structure and not having an alternative, I think it makes a great deal of sense to ensure that we have, you know, the ability that we guarantee the ability for Canadian exporters to get their goods to the United States. The importance, even the auto sector, if you look at the importance of that Detroit-Windsor crossing in terms of the auto sector and the supply chains, which are inherently shared between Canada and U.S., Detroit and Windsor. For all of these reasons, making sure that we have a secure link for trade and commerce and people between Detroit and Windsor is in the interest of all Canadians.
Thank you. Minister, I know you were scheduled here only for an hour. It's been the practice of this committee, where possible, to try and get a complete round in, which means there would be one 3-minute round left for your colleague, Mr. McGregor. Would you be willing to stay at the committee to provide answers to questions for an additional 3 minutes?
I think I can do 3
minutes. You can manage that? You can manage that?
I have Mr. McGregor.
Thank you so much. Mr. McGregor, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Chair, and thank you, Minister, for indulging me. So neither the main estimates nor the supplementary estimates include the $4.5 billion purchase of the Trans Mountain Pipeline. Your government took a loan through the Canada Development Investment Corporation from Export Development Canada to create a new Crown Corporation, Trans Mountain Corporation. So we've heard all about this talk of parliamentary oversight. Why would you make such a large purchase and not use the estimates process to get this money approved? And if you have so much money floating around from Crown corporations, why on earth is your government spending it on a diluted bitumen exporting pipeline and not addressing the needs of the housing crisis or climate change adaptation and mitigation?
Well, Mr. McGregor, having diversifying our markets for our energy is critically important.
States currently. It all goes to the United States currently, so you can't use that argument.
Diversifying our energy exports is critically important. 97% of our energy goes to the United States
through the existing pipeline
right now, and finding new markets for Canadian energy is important. Right now, we are selling our Canadian energy at a deep discount as a result of not having the ability.
Why was this purchase not made through the estimates process?
Well, it's actually it's a non-budgetary item. Brian can expand on that, but I can tell you that we believe it's in our national interest to complete the TMX project because we need to expand our markets for our energy. Right now, Canadian energy is being sold at a deep discount.
I understand
as a result of not having those markets. That is good for all Canadians.
Thank you, Minister.
That is good for not just people in the energy sector.
Will you be able to find $4.5 billion for other Crown corporations like the CMHC
the deep discount that we're selling Canadian energy at?
Colleagues, as I mentioned once before,
$15 billion.
I'd like to be able to hear both the question and the answer.
It costs our economy $15 billion per year.
Thank you, Minister. I think Minister Bryson said that Mr. Pagan could expand upon the answer directly to your question about the subs.
I would like to get one more question to the Minister. I don't want to hear any more on this line of questions. Yeah, I realize that. So, Minister, I've heard all of your reasoning. Will your government commit to finding $4.5 billion for other Crown corporations like the Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation to spend on housing immediately if you can do the same for a pipeline?
Actually, we're making unprecedented investments
right now this year.
Housing
this year?
as a government. In fact, our national housing strategy,
it's all being backloaded in 2020,
is very significant in partnership.
Not addressing
the federal government is clearly back. But Brian, on the item of the non-budgetary item of Trans Mountain.
Well, thank you for the question, Mr. McGregor. In the estimates documents at the front end, you'll see that we break out spending by budgetary voted and statutory and non-budgetary voted and statutory. Non-budgetary items are those items that go to the bottom line of the Government of Canada. They affect the underlying composition of our assets. So loans, recoveries, investments and advances. And so in this case, there is no appropriation authority. We don't need the cash to make this purchase. It is a loan from one Crown corporation to another Crown corporation. It's recorded on the books of the Government of Canada as an asset with an offsetting liability for the amount of that loan. Then when it is sold, we will either make money or lose money on that transaction, and that will be recorded in the underlying statements of the Government of Canada.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Minister. We thank you again for being here today. Just one quick comment and observation from the Chair, if I may. I hope, Minister, since we have invited you as a committee to appear before this committee to discuss specifically the Whistleblower Protection Act and the report that this committee worked very hard to develop and present in Parliament. We have yet to hear back from your office. I'm not going to try and put you on the spot, but certainly, sir, I hope you would take it under your most serious consideration to attend the next time you're invited to this committee to discuss that specific issue.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and thank you to the committee. I was pleased to be able to refer to some of the changes we've made in terms of that regime, which was informed by the work of this committee, and thank you for the interest of some of the members in the supplementary estimates as well.
Thank you on behalf of the committee. Colleagues, we will suspend for just a couple of minutes while the Minister departs the room, then we'll resume in about 3 minutes from now. Colleagues, I'll call the meeting back to order again. Before I begin with a brief opening statement by Mr. Pagan, I do want to address my remarks directly to Mr. Pagan, hopefully on behalf of all of our committee members, and that is to say, sir, thank you so much, to underscore what Minister Bryson was saying, for all your years of service. It is a thankless job many times to do what you do and to what public servants do, and so I want to publicly thank you, since we are televised, for your many years of service and wish you a great future. I hope retirement treats you well, and I hope we have an opportunity sometime in the future to see you back here in Parliament Hill. Once again, thank you for everything you've done on behalf of Canadians coast to coast to coast.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. It's been my pleasure to represent Treasury Board and to serve this committee, and I very much look forward to presenting my final supplementary estimates.
Well, that's a nice segue, Mr. Pagan. I understand that you have a brief opening statement, and following that, we'll go directly into questions. Colleagues, we will not have enough time, I think, for an entire first round, but we will have about 40 minutes, and that should give us enough time for at least 1 or 1.5 rounds of questions. So, Mr. Pagan, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you again. The President, in his opening remarks, provided a broad overview of the supplementary estimates and the major items therein. There has been a PowerPoint presentation circulated to committee members, and I simply wanted to take just a very few minutes to speak to where we're at in the supply process. And so what we see in front of us projected here on the screen on slide 3 is the supply calendar. As the committee will know, the House calendar is broken into 3 supply periods ending this period here for SUPSA, December 10th, and then March 26th end of fiscal year, and then to start next fiscal year, June 30th. And so what we see in this period, September to December, the supply period ending December 10th, is that we have the conclusion of last fiscal year. We have the annual financial report and the public accounts for the Government of Canada, and we're tabling our first supplementary estimates of the year. And we look forward in the next few weeks to a fall economic statement, which may result in additional priorities, and we would bring those to Parliament in subsequent supply periods. So that is the supply period. And then on slide 4, just a reminder that we have the tabled document in the House that provides a summary of the supplementary estimates seeking $7.5 billion in voted authorities. We have details on a large number of horizontal items this year in this subs. We have 21 horizontal items. We have detailed by each and every organization, the 76 organizations seeking money through the Supplementary Estimates A, and then the proposed schedule to the appropriation bill that will be introduced in December. That's all part of the tabled document. In addition to that, there is a wealth of information available online. This information has been generated in large part by interactions with this committee over the years, where they have asked for additional details on statutory expenditures, breaking out the estimates by program or by purpose, breaking out the details by standard objects of expenditure, so salaries and professional services and travel, etc. We have a detailed listing of all of our central votes. We have a detailed listing of transfers between organizations. And then, most importantly, is Infobase. And I've said in the past that as we continue to make improvements to Infobase, it's my expressed hope that someday we become irrelevant, and everything that you would want to know about the estimates is available online. So, Mr. Chair, that's the just the overview of where we're at. There were a number of questions in the previous round. I'd be happy to follow up on any of those or any new questions that the committee may have. I should mention I'm joined at the table by my Executive Director, Marcia Santiago, our new CFO at the Treasury Board, Karen Cahill, and Mr. Glenn Purvis, who is taking on the responsibilities of Assistant Secretary Expenditure Management.
Thank you very much for your statement. We'll go directly into 7-minute rounds now, starting with Madame Yip for 7 minutes, please.
Sorry.
Sorry, that's televised as well. But it looks delicious.
That's not for me. Okay. Thank you very much for coming. how do the estimates help provide a better infrastructure for Canadians?
Madame Yip, in fact, that's a very interesting question because it's one of the challenges that we're grappling with now on Infobase. Government is organized vertically. So we have departments. We have a Department of Infrastructure. We have a Department of Fisheries and Oceans. We have a Department of Environment, et cetera, et cetera. And the estimates presented to you, for the most part, present that information according to those departmental structures. Over the years, we've come to realize that departments in and of themselves are often not able to address all of the policy and program goals of government, that to achieve the objectives of the government, they need to work together. And so at the very front end of the document, we have a listing of all of the horizontal items. And I mentioned some 21 items in this document. So that's an example of how we have interacted with the committee to present information in a new way. In addition, we are often, through Infobase, people are looking, they don't know how government is organized. And they may not use infrastructure, they may use construction, or they may use some other term. And so we are using data tags to allow a searchable online access to spending. So you can use Infobase to query, as you could query in Google, seniors, Aboriginals, youth, infrastructure, and you'll see all of the different programs and spending of government. And this is something that is iterative, and we will make it better year in and year out. Now, specifically with respect to infrastructure, I mentioned horizontal initiatives. So the very first horizontal initiative on page 1-12 of the document is funding for infrastructure projects in Indigenous communities. And what we see through that very first initiative is that we've got 3 departments joining up to address infrastructure in Indigenous communities. We've got the Department of Indian Affairs and Northern Development, the Department of Indigenous Services Canada, and the Department of Public Safety and Emergency Preparedness. Each is doing their part to address infrastructure needs in Aboriginal communities. And then specifically with respect to major infrastructure, we had questions in the previous round about the Champlain Bridge, so money being sought by Office of Infrastructure Canada for that large project. The Gordie Howe Bridge, the Detroit Bridge Crossing, is another major item in these supplementary estimates. And then there is federal infrastructure, labs and property of individual departments, and we see major investments in departments, most notably Department of National Defense and Department of Fisheries and Oceans for the Coast Guard ships that we spoke of.
What kind of property is part of the national defense that you just mentioned?
Right. To my recollection, the Department of National Defense is the largest property owner in Canada. They have testing facilities, bases, depots across the country, and in the funds being sought in these supplementary estimates, some $282 million. It covers a range of capital projects in the department. Now, a capital project can be anything from a major equipment system, such as a ship or a tank or an airplane, but it also encompasses the real property. And what we see in the $282 million for D&D through these supplementary estimates includes funding for some of their facilities across the country, upgrades to barracks, training facilities, and their bases.
Thank you. Shared Services Canada has requested $14.6 million in funding for the 2018-2020 Immigration Levels Plan. What is Shared Services' role in the Immigration Levels Plan, and what is the $14.6 million funding used for?
Thank you. I'm just checking my notes here on this one. SSC, as we know, provides the physical infrastructure backbone for government departments, and in this particular case, They're seeking operating and capital expenditures to provide these core IT services, including systems overseas. And so a large part of the request for SSC includes working with departments to install infrastructure overseas.
So with respect to the border services job classification comparability study, there's $500,000 put towards that. Can you explain what this study is about and how will it help border services? And is the study on schedule? So I'm referring to your the Treasury Board Secretariat.
Right. I'll defer to
2-105.
right.
Appreciate it.
So normally what we do is we take studies to be able to compare jobs between different classifications. As the core public administration employer, we are undertaking a study to ensure that the job wages are comparable for both the border services and the correctional services officers. Now, the study has not yet started, but we will commission the study in the upcoming months.
Very much.
Thank you.
We'll now go to Mr. McCauley for 7 minutes, please.
Great. Santiago, welcome back. Minister Bryson, referenced the sources and uses of the budget implementation vote by department on the website. I'm just wondering, you cannot track month by month any new spending. You update the total spent, but not by month. How are Canadians, parliamentarians, supposed to actually follow the money? We can only do it because we've actually printed the very first one that came out in April, so we can actually compare, and we print it every month. But the month-by-month new money comes out is not reflected or is shown separately.
All right. Well, thank you, Mr. McCauley. You're quite right. The monthly updates do not show a delta from one month to the next, and that's something that we could be happy to look at to show what the difference is. The key advance from our perspective here is in the quantity and the quality of the updates. The fact that there have been 7 updates for this committee and for Canadians since the original posting on the 16th of April.
Well, I appreciate that, but just opening it up, anyone around, I can't imagine anyone across the table has actually looked at it, but if they were to look at it today, they would not know how much has been spent last month, how much was rolled out a month ago. And Mr. McGregor brought up the fact, okay, the vote 40 was supposed to replace basically a SUPS, and yet we've only had about less than 60% of it has actually gone out. Canadians actually can't tell, parliamentarians can't tell, and I appreciate that you're going to look at it. Maybe we can get a commitment that you can just add a simple line showing how much is going out every month so that we can actually see.
I welcome the suggestion, Mr. McCauley. That's something that we'd be glad to look at. I would simply caution that the estimates are intended to provide information about the authorities available to departments, and so we have focused on how we have made allocations from that vote. Making the allocation and money spent is a different.
Unless I'm wrong, I heard Minister Bryson very clearly saying Canadians, parliamentarians could actually follow the funds. With this, again, it's a simple change. I hope you can fix it, but you understand you can't follow it unless you've printed it every single month and spend the time making your own Excel spreadsheet. I'm going to move on. The Vote 40 budget, or once they're approved, the Vote 40 budget initiatives are approved. Some go across our government departments. Are these considered horizontal items, or are they all individual initiatives for each individual department?
Well, thank you. That's a very good question, Mr. McCauley, because in fact, in some instances, an item in the budget implementation vote is in fact a horizontal item. Right. An example would be Phoenix and the work that TBS and PSPC are doing to work on supporting the existing system.
So vote 40 will go across as a is it considered like a horizontal, like the rest of the estimates?
No, just to be very clear here. Allocations from vote 40 can be horizontal items if we are advancing money for the same budget item to a number of different departments.
Okay. Let me ask you, Treasury Vote, Central Vote 5, there's 1.1 million contingency emergency fund to enable ESDC as grant payments for support for labor market information. I'm just curious, it's three-quarters, $800 million a year department. Why an emergency $1 million? They couldn't find it. And is that $1 million, if it's linked in any way to, well, what's the big rush for it, but is it linked in any way to, because they use it for labor market opinions, is it linked in any way to the Stats Canada issue going on right now with their deep dive Stats Canada is doing into banking accounts?
Thank you, Mr. McCauley. The Vote 5 exists, as the committee knows, to allocate funding to departments in advance of supply. In those cases where departments have existing cash authorities, they won't need the vote. But when it comes to making a grant payment, they need the authority to do that. And so in this case, it is the allocation of a grant.
It's not related to Stats Canada.
It's not?
No, we don't believe it's at all related to the Stats Canada.
I want to get quick because I'm running out of time. The departmental plans that Minister Bryson spoke about, we have discussed it recently, and there is a framework. It sets out very clear policy objective of the framework and very clear requirements. I'd like to know, Treasury boards, it's supposed to be the oversight of the departmental plans, is how much oversight you give. And I want to give you some statistics. There's something like 1,600 targets set out in the various departmental plans. We've read through them all and counted them all. Fully 1/5 have no actual targets set, achievable or measurable targets set, which is odd if we're spending $300 billion in a year. There's no target set. 12%, so 1 out of every 8, there's no date set for the target. And fully 48% have no target to compare to. It's left not applicable for 2016, 2017 numbers. So I have to ask, Treasury Board, are you satisfied with what I think is a complete failure of the departmental plans? What is Treasury Board's role in ensuring that this is addressed and doesn't continue, where we have massive spending, ministers signing off on the plans that are completely unacceptable and do not set out any direction as the framework requires it to do?
All right. Mr. McCauley, I think this is one area where, in fact, we would share a common interest. Treasury Board certainly has a role in terms of the results policy, and we work with departments to clarify.
We heard right? From the parliamentary secretary, it's okay because it's a learning process and government's complicated. Do you share that view that 48% is acceptable and 1/5 of all goals?
I agree that government is complicated, and I do believe that this is a journey and that suggestions from this committee in terms of improving results indicators would be very helpful to departments.
Thank you very much. Mr. McGregor, 7 minutes.
Thank you very much, Chair. Mr. Pagan, I too want to revisit Vote 40. Now, I understand, going through the different departments that I'm correct in saying that this is just the monies that have been allocated, not necessarily spent.
Correct.
Okay. So I again want to revisit this issue of parliamentary oversight, because one of the most important roles we have is that Her Majesty cannot spend any funds that Parliament does not first approve. Now, I appreciate that, the Government of Canada is listing these items. The problem I have is that Vote 40 has already been approved by Parliament. $7 billion was approved, and so even as we see these items come up, our ability to talk about where the money is actually going is kind of a moot point because the funds have already been approved. And so, I go through the list and I see, there's $9.5 million allocated for aquaculture growth. Well, on the West Coast, we have huge problems with fish farms and their impact on wild salmon. There's $10 million allocated for rural broadband. You know how big this country is? Is $10 million even enough to cover that? At the Agriculture Committee, we're hearing a lot that this is necessary. So again, my ability to influence or have any say in the oversight of this spending is limited because the funds have already been approved. There's $22 million going to protect the southern resident killer whale. Again, an issue that my constituents have great concern over. My ability to oversee these funds, they have already been approved by Parliament. Do you see where my particular problem is here? Because the money's been already approved, but at that time, we'd had no idea where it was being allocated. So that's the issue I have, and I'm just wondering if you can comment on that.
Right. Mr. McGregor, this is a tremendously important issue, and there was a great deal of debate within this committee and elsewhere in the spring. I don't know that a short answer will do it justice, but the starting point is about improving transparency so that parliamentarians understand how the estimates process supports the budget. And in the minister's own parlance, we had it completely backwards before. When we submitted the estimates, then we followed up with a budget, and then we brought budget items piece at a time over many years, in some cases 5-6 years from a budget announcement until the time it showed up in the estimates. The intention of Vote 40 this year was to essentially serve as a report card. The government has said in Budget 18 that they expect to spend $7 billion on a cash basis, and so we have put that in the estimates, and we are reporting every month about how that money is being allocated and how it's being used. And at the end of the year, we will see how the government has done in terms of allocating money to its priorities as announced in Budget 18. I think that that's a tremendous step forward in terms of transparency and just making the process understandable. Parliament approved the budget, and therefore I don't think it's illogical that Parliament would approve the appropriations to implement the budget. And what we are doing through our reporting is providing a level of detail and a pace of detail that has simply never existed before. And we're supporting that with additional online material, including on InfoBase.
So my next question then is, at the time of Vote 40, were departmental plans detailed enough to indicate they had a future need for these funds, or are departmental plans now coming into greater clarity now that they know the funding is available?
That's a terrific question, and the short answer is that no. When the estimates were tabled, when the budget was tabled, departmental plans did not reflect the priorities announced and the funding made available in Budget 18.
So do you see the problem there? Because if departments realize that there is a rather large sum of money available, perhaps they can start finding reasons for that money which they may otherwise have had to justify in the first place.
Just to be very clear, the budget process is not based on the Department of Finance just doling money out willy-nilly. This is based on expressed needs by departments. A minister has written to the Minister of Finance requesting a certain sum of money to do a certain program or fulfill a certain mandate commitment, and that is scrutinized very vigorously by the Department of Finance to make sure that funding is in fact required and is going to serve the government's objectives. So departments are not surprised to get budget money. They've asked for it, and they know in some level of detail what they'll be doing with it. It does take time to go from finding out that you got money in the budget to actually working with your program partners and negotiating contracts to be able to present detailed terms and conditions, and that explains in part why we're at 45% allocated.
Thank you. I want to change topics now and address Phoenix. So the Auditor General is still not terribly happy with how this program is being dealt with. We know that, since the implementation of this pay system, more than $1 billion has been spent trying to fix it. I'm just wondering, from Treasury Board's perspective, I have a lot of constituents who are affected by this, whose lives have been placed on hold, going through tremendous strain. How much farther down the rabbit hole do we have to go before we actually see this problem fixed? I mean, how much longer are we going to have to wait? And you estimate how much more money is going to be spent to fix it?
Yeah. Karen may have some detail on that, but Mr. McGregor, there are some elements to your question that are well beyond my remit in the expenditure management sector. You mentioned the money's already spent. The Comptroller General did a report in late spring that suggested an amount going forward, and to my knowledge that remains the best number out there in terms of the cost of fixing Phoenix. Beyond that, the timing and where PSPC is at with system upgrades, I think those are questions.
The department provided some advice as to their best estimates. I mean, is that not a topic of discussion at the upper levels of Treasury Board about how much longer this could go on for?
I'm not part of those discussions.
Nora, I'm sorry, Nora, it's not something that we're involved with.
Unfortunately, we're completely out of time for that, but perhaps you can add to your answer in our next intervention, which will come from Mr. Drouin for 7 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I too would like to wish Mr. Pagan, after long years of service to Canada, a good retirement. But before you go, I do have a few questions for you. Just with regards to the budget implementation vote and Vote 40, it's my understanding that the Government of Canada is not the only jurisdiction doing this, right? Correct?
Well, that's correct. Budget implementation votes in some form or other exist in the provinces. We've looked at, from memory, Manitoba and I believe Nova Scotia have elements of a budget implementation vote. As the Minister has said, there are other models out there. He's especially fond of how Australia does their budgeting process, and that's something that we continue to study with great interest in terms of how processes are sequenced and when decisions are made.
Okay, thank you. Quick question on horizontal items. So you've said that there's 21 horizontal items listed that was provided to Parliament. My question has to do with what is the process for horizontal initiatives to be determined? So I know that it's 2 or 3 or 2 or more departments, but what kicks off that process? Because one could make the argument that, well, any initiative in government should involve more than one department. So what's that trigger effect?
Right. Well, to an earlier question, government is complicated, and so there's not necessarily any one initiative is the same as the other, but generally what we're looking at is a 3-step process where there will be a policy discussion, a policy decision of government. This is something we want to do. Then there's a budget decision to say this is how much we're going to spend on it, and then we see the TB approvals and we bring that to Parliament for approval. And so that's the general playbook, and what we see here in the 21 initiatives is consistent with that. So there would be policy discussions at Cabinet about, for instance, the LGBT purge class action. This is a liability facing the government. We need to do something as a government to respond to this, and so there was a discussion about how best to formulate that response, what departments would be involved in that response. And then, so what we see here before you is that the program is being addressed by National Defence, primarily for legal costs and some of the challenges to date, and then the Treasury Board Secretariat in their central vote is holding the money and will be allocating that money out once the class is settled by the courts.
Okay, thank you. Just with regards to the First Nations water and wastewater initiative, so there's $423.1 million allocated in that. Do we have a number in terms of how many communities will be affected by this?
I don't have a precise number on the number of communities, Mr. Drouin, but we can certainly try to get that for you. What I can say is, as the Minister mentioned earlier, is just the progress that has been made. I think he mentioned 74 water advisories already cleared, with the expectation that this additional funding will lift all advisories by 2021, I believe, is the time frame.
Okay, great. Thanks. Just maybe I think I probably have time for one last question.
2.5 minutes.
Yeah, 2.5 minutes. Capital investments in support of strong, secure, and engaged. You've got a number here of $282.2 million. What is that? What's that for?
This is it's an assortment of a number of what we call minor capital and smaller projects. Typically, anything over $100 million is classified as a major capital project, and so think ships, planes, major weapon systems, and those will have their own profile in the estimates. Underneath that is just a wide assortment of requirements for the department related to base infrastructure, labs and barracks, minor vehicles to taxi troops back and forth, and there's I think a significant expenditure as well related to the upgrade to the new headquarters, the former Nortel building. They're finalizing the retrofit of that. Staff have already begun to move in, but there are elements related to the upgrade of that new headquarters.
Great, thank you. Merci.
Colleagues, we'll have time for, I believe, 2 more 5-minute interventions. We'll start with Mr. Deltel. I understand you may be splitting your time with Mr. McCauley. I'll give you the 2-minute signal when there's 2 minutes left.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. Alors, à mon tour, Monsieur Pagan, de vous.
My turn, Mr. Pagan, to thank you for the services you have rendered to Canada, and I wish you all the best for your subsequent activities. And I hope Mr. Purves will continue this wonderful tradition. Thank you. I'd like to talk to you about the G7 summit in Charlevoix. On page 113, it is mentioned that there were expenses of $80.5 million approximately, and I would like to know whether that amount is part of the $605 million that were announced, or if that is a supplementary expenditure besides the $605 million that were announced for June. Thank you, Mr. Deltel. I will check the exact amounts, but in my opinion, that is part of the initially announced costs. And in this case, it was a matter of reprofiling the amounts that were already available, and they are simply put into the current fiscal year to be accessible for the department. So that would be part of the $605 million. It's not an additional 80. Okay, well, that's good. I would like to bring you to another topic on the vote number 10 for the Treasury Board. We're talking about $275.7 million, whereas in past years, this amount was $3 million. I would like to know what explains this gigantic leap in this amount. Mr. Deltel? That's an excellent observation. There are 2 major projects that reflect this growth in, first of all, the LGTB class action purge. Until such time as the court finalizes the list of members who are targeted by this suit, then the amounts are held by the Treasury Board, and then they will be distributed. Yes, but we're a little bit surprised to see that this much money was provided for. We agree with the principle, but we're going from $3 million to 80 times more. And we agree completely with the approach that was taken and with the sums that are going to be dispersed, but we're surprised that it wasn't planned, because it would see that the theme that the government knew about it, but we're talking about an 80 times more. It's simply a matter of the amount that was estimated for this suit.
$110 million. It's not clear what the exact amounts will be, and so we're holding that money in Vote 10, and we will allocate it out. Anything that is not used for that purpose lapses in the vote and will be reprofiled. The other element is for the Indigenous early childhood learning, and this is a framework that is being co-developed with the Assembly of First Nations, with the Métis National Council, and with the Inuit Council. And once the parameters of those programs are known, the monies will be distributed to the appropriate programs within the Government of Canada. Donc, c'est pas une dépense du Conseil de Trésor.
So it's not actually a Treasury Board expenditure. It's simply using the central votes until such time as the terms of the programs are known.
The next question is for you. Following up, Mr. Bryson, the National Joint Council's meeting about compensation for those who've been Phoenixed. Is any of that money set aside or will come out of the Vote 40 under stabilizing Phoenix? It hasn't been looked at yet?
No, thank you, Mr. Colley. No, that is a compensation element that'll be addressed separately.
Just a no is fine, thanks. Yeah. Repeated out throughout the estimates, there's 99,196. Why that number, or what for specifically? Follow up with the Phoenix. On your online, the online allocation, TBS votes, there's $7 million for 25 full-time equivalents for Phoenix stabilization. That's like $250,000 a person. What are they going to be doing for $250,000 a person?
Right. So on your first question, Mr. Macaulay, Budget 18 allocated funding 1 year only for departments to hire temporary support to help process and deal with the Phoenix backlog. And so our formula was simply based on size of the department. It was pro-weighted.
Solely for Miramichi departments, or those still with in-house?
Miramichi departments.
Yeah. Solely with Miramichi, yeah. Okay. Yeah. And the $7 million for the 25 full-time equivalents? Page 24 of your online allocation.
I believe that we're talking about more than FTEs there. There are professional services and contracting elements to that, I believe.
Should that not be identified in the online allocation?
Yeah, no, this is the system fix.
Transparency and everything?
No, this is the system fix. We're working to work with PSPC on some of the business rules that are driving some of the Phoenix challenges, trying to standardize some of the way different classifications.
Shouldn't that be identified then, full-time equivalents and outside consultants?
Well, in fact, it's more than just consultants. We're looking at regs and some of the legal issues around.
Okay, I think I'm out of time, but thanks.
Thank you very much. Our final intervention will come from Mr. Peterson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Pagan, and everyone for being with us this afternoon. I want to talk a little bit about just the Gordie Howe Bridge, just because it's important to where I come from in Newmarket, Aurora. Obviously, auto sector, manufacturing is very important. Much of the trade that crosses the border either originates or ends up near that part of the province of Ontario. So this is the subs are $283.6 million, I think. Why is this number in the subs, and what's changed that this wasn't in the main estimates? This project, of course, has been ongoing for a long time. It's really starting to pick up speed now. Some hurdles like litigation have now been removed. Construction is now, I think, underway or very close to being underway. Was this a timing thing? There wasn't enough, the cash flow wasn't there to start the construction? Or
right. Yeah. So thank you, Mr. Peterson. This is a regular occurrence with estimates where we are in a world where we are voting appropriations annually, and we will only seek the appropriations once the parameters of a program are known. So the Gordie Howe Bridge was planned many years ago, and there was money set aside in the budget, in the fiscal framework for that expenditure. And then there have been some appropriations over the intervening years to support the procurement process, to develop an RFP, to purchase some of the land, et cetera. The construction of the bridge, the selection of the consortium building the bridge was finalized this past spring, and a contract was signed with that consortia in, I believe it was in September of this year. It's a $5.7 billion project that will run till 2024. And so this Supplementary Estimates A is the first opportunity to bring forward for Parliament's approval the cash requirements of that contract. So it's $5.7 billion in between now and 2024. Parliament will see the request for that money. Specifically in these Supplementary Estimates A, the $283.6 million. This is being used to acquire the final properties on the Michigan side of the border and to prepare both sides, the Canada and the U.S. sites, for construction, which has actually begun as of last month. Construction began in October. There will be significant expenditures in the main estimates next year for this department, and then as the contract, as the project unfolds, and if there are any deviations from the contract and the initial profile of the funding, those would be reflected in supplementary estimates. If the monies accessed this year or requested this year are not utilized, then those would be brought forward in a future year, and we would explain those requirements.
Okay, that's very helpful. Just, the money couldn't flow or couldn't be requested until the contract was finalized, effectively. Okay, thank you for that. And just a little bit on the process here. You mentioned in your deck, I think on page 9, 2 significant changes to the supplementary estimates. A reduction in the number of estimates from 3 to 2. Okay, that's self-explanatory. And then a significant reduction in funding from the most recent federal budget in the supplementary estimates. The bulk of the funding for Budget 2018 initiatives will be allocated directly from the centrally managed budget and implementation vote introduced in the main estimates. So, why is that a good thing? And is this? Can you quantify that? Is this the vote 40 that we've always been talking about?
Correct.
So this is still just this is an interim measure, correct?
The changes to the standing orders that allow us to table the estimates after the budget are valid for the duration of this Parliament, and so a future Parliament will determine whether this is progress to be continued or not. In terms of the budget implementation vote, if we didn't have that mechanism to allocate money as initiatives are approved, then what we would have seen is that instead of a $7.5 billion supplementary estimate, we would have taken all of that budget implementation money and we would have rolled it into this first supplementary estimate, and so you would have had a SUPS over $10 billion.
Right.
And so we believe it's a good thing because it enhances transparency and it allows a more timely allocation so that departments can get on with delivering the program and service as identified in Budget 18.
Okay, thank you. So we have one more supplementary period under this new, which is February, I think we're done?
We are done.
Oh, wow. Thanks,
Time is precious. Time is precious, isn't it? To all our witnesses, thank you very much for being here. Once again, Mr. Pagan, good luck in your future plans. And to Mr. Purvis, good luck to you, sir, in your future challenges.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you all. We are adjourned.